This is not just another case of miraculous awakening. What Mackenzie brings with her from the depths of her sleep goes far beyond anything anyone could have imagined. Dr. Noah Thompson, a physician who has dedicated his life to neurology, is about to question everything he believed about science and faith. What if the miracle we've been waiting for brings with it a truth we'd rather not know? The silence in room 317 of St. Paul's Hospital was almost palpable, interrupted only by the rhythmic beeping of monitors. The golden light of Vancouver's dusk filtered through the curtains, casting an ethereal glow on Mackenzie Fraser's motionless figure. Dr. Noah Thompson entered the room, his footsteps echoing softly on the linoleum floor. He approached the bed, his tired eyes scanning the familiar readings on the monitors. 5 years, 5 long years since Mackenzie, then 18, had been brought to the hospital after a mysterious accident. "Mackenzie," he murmured, more out of habit than expectation. "We're here for you." That's when it happened. A subtle, almost imperceptible movement of Mackenzie's fingers. Noah held his breath, his heart racing. Could it be, after so long? Mackenzie's eyes opened slowly, blinking against the soft light. Her gaze, once empty, now shone with surprising clarity. "Dr. Thompson," she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. I saw." Noah leaned in closer, barely believing what he was witnessing. "Mackenzie, can you hear me? Do you know where you are?" She nodded slightly, her eyes fixed on something beyond the room. "I saw beyond, but it wasn't as we thought. It wasn't peace, it was knowledge." A chill ran down Noah's spine. In his years of medical practice, he had never encountered a patient who woke from such a long coma with such lucidity. "What do you mean, Mackenzie?" he asked softly. "The shadows," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "They whispered secrets. Secrets about me, about you, about all of us." Noah felt a wave of discomfort. This went beyond any medical protocol he knew. "Mackenzie, you've been through a lot. It's normal to feel confused." But Mackenzie grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "No, doctor, I'm not confused. I've never been clearer. The accident, it wasn't an accident." At that moment, the door opened and Mackenzie's parents, Robert and Emily Fraser, rushed in, their faces a mixture of shock and joy. "Mac," Emily cried, running to her daughter's side. But Mackenzie recoiled, a flash of fear crossing her face. "No," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here. It's not safe." Robert froze, his face paling. "What are you talking about, darling? We're here for you." Mackenzie looked directly at Noah, her eyes pleading for understanding. "Dr. Thompson, please, don't let them stay. There are things I need to tell you, things I saw in the shadows." Noah found himself torn between his professional duty and an inexplicable sense that Mackenzie was about to reveal something crucial. "Mr. and Mrs. Fraser," he finally said, "I know this is difficult, but we need to run some tests. Please give us a few moments." Reluctantly, the Frasers left, casting confused glances at their daughter. When the door closed, Mackenzie visibly relaxed. "Thank you," she whispered. "Now, Dr. Thompson, I need you to listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you will change everything you believe about life, death, and what exists between them." Noah pulled a chair close to the bed, his heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and dread. He didn't know it, but he was about to embark on a journey that would challenge not only his faith in science, but his understanding of reality itself. Dr. Noah Thompson adjusted his posture in the chair, his eyes fixed on Mackenzie. The young woman, who had been in a coma just minutes ago, now radiated an intensity he had never seen before. "During these 5 years," Mackenzie began, her voice a whisper laden with emotion, "I wasn't simply sleeping. I was somewhere else, a place between worlds, where shadows speak and secrets echo." Noah felt a shiver run down his spine. As a scientist, he wanted to dismiss this as post-coma delusions, but something in Mackenzie's conviction stopped him. "I saw things, Dr. Thompson, things about my family, about this hospital, About you. The doctor swallowed hard. About me. Mackenzie nodded, her eyes shining with wisdom beyond her years. I know about Sarah, your daughter, the one you lost 10 years ago. Noah's heart stopped. No one at the hospital knew about Sarah. It was a secret he kept deeply buried. How do you know about that? He stammered. The shadows showed me. But there's more. Doctor, Sarah. She didn't die in that accident. Noah's world seemed to spin. What? But I saw the funeral. What you saw was an elaborate lie. Mackenzie continued, her voice trembling slightly. Sarah is alive, and she's closer than you think. Tears began to form in Noah's eyes. This is impossible. Why would anyone do this? To protect her, Mackenzie answered, and to protect you. There's a web of secrets surrounding this hospital, Doctor. Secrets that go back decades, and somehow we're all connected to it. Noah stood up abruptly, his mind in turmoil. This is madness. You've just woken up from a coma, Mackenzie. Your mind is confused. But Mackenzie reached out, grasping his arm with surprising strength. Look in the third cabinet, on the right in corridor B of the basement, behind the supply shelf. You'll find the proof you need. Noah stared at her, torn between skepticism and a growing sense that something deeply disturbing was happening. Why are you telling me this? He finally asked. Mackenzie's eyes filled with tears. Because you're the only person who can save us. Dr. Thompson, me, Sarah, and all the other souls trapped in this limbo of secrets. At that moment, the door opened and a nurse entered. Dr. Thompson, Mackenzie's parents are insisting on seeing her. Noah looked back at Mackenzie, who now seemed fragile and frightened. Don't let them in, she whispered. Please. With a heavy heart and a mind in turmoil, Noah left the room. He knew he should call a psychiatrist, report Mackenzie's ramblings as post-coma delusions. But something compelled him towards the basement. As he walked through the familiar corridors of St. Paul's, Noah felt as if he was seeing everything for the first time. The shadows seemed deeper, the whispers of patients and staff laden with hidden meanings. Reaching the basement, he hesitated in front of the cabinet Mackenzie had mentioned. With trembling hands, he opened the door and moved the supply shelf. There, hidden in the shadows, was a yellowed envelope. As he opened it, Noah felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. It was a photo of Sarah, clearly taken a few months ago, holding a recent newspaper. His daughter was alive, and with that revelation, Noah realized he was only scratching the surface of a mystery far greater and darker than he could ever have imagined. The envelope trembled in Noah's hands as he climbed the stairs back to Mackenzie's floor. His mind was spinning, struggling to reconcile the reality he knew with the shocking revelations he had just discovered. Sarah, his beloved daughter, alive. But why? How? As he approached room 317, Noah heard raised voices. Quickening his pace, he opened the door to find Robert Fraser leaning over Mackenzie's bed, his face contorted with anger. What did you tell him? Robert was shouting, gripping Mackenzie's arm tightly. You don't know anything, Mr. Fraser. Noah intervened, his voice thundering with an authority that surprised even himself. Step away from her immediately. Robert turned, fear quickly replacing anger in his eyes. Emily Fraser was in the corner, crying silently. Dr. Thompson, Robert stammered. It's not what it looks like. Mackenzie is confused. She's saying things. Get out, Noah ordered, his voice cold as ice. Both of you. Now. Reluctantly, the Frasers left the room. Noah locked the door behind them and turned to Mackenzie, who was visibly shaking. You saw, didn't you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You found the photo? Noah nodded, unable to form words. Mackenzie reached out, silently asking to see the photograph. He hesitated for a moment before handing it over. Mackenzie studied the image, silent tears running down her cheeks. She's so beautiful, she murmured. So much like you. How? Noah finally managed to ask. How do you know all this? Mackenzie took a deep breath, her eyes fixing on a distant point beyond the hospital window. During my coma, I wasn't just sleeping, Dr. Thompson. I was traveling. My consciousness wandered through this hospital, through the corridors of time. I saw things that happened decades ago, and things yet to come. She paused, her eyes turning to meet Noah's. This hospital holds secrets far darker than you can imagine. Illegal experiments, stolen lives, and at the center of it all, a group that calls itself the Guardians of Light. Noah felt a chill run down his spine. The Guardians of Light. Mackenzie nodded gravely. They believe they're doing God's work, Dr. Thompson, saving lives through means that most would consider unethical. Your father, she pointed to Sarah's photo, was one of them. Noah's world seemed to crumble. His father, the respected surgeon, Dr. William Thompson, involved in something so sinister. But what does this have to do with Sarah, with you? He asked, his voice trembling. Sarah discovered something she shouldn't have, Mackenzie explained. Something about the experiments. They faked her death to protect her and to silence her. Noah fell heavily into the chair beside the bed, his mind struggling to process everything. And you? How do you fit into all of this? Mackenzie's eyes filled with a deep sadness. I am the result of one of those experiments. Dr. Thompson, my coma wasn't an accident. It was induced to transform me into a bridge between this world and the beyond. At that moment, the hospital lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. When they came back on, Noah saw something that defied all logic. Mackenzie's body was on the bed, but an ethereal version of her was standing beside it, smiling sadly. Now do you understand, Dr. Thompson? The ethereal Mackenzie spoke. The miracle of my awakening is just the beginning. We have to stop the Guardians before it's too late. For all of us. Noah, trembling, realized he was about to plunge into a world where the line between science and the supernatural, between life and death, was thinner than he had ever imagined. And at the center of it all was the mystery of his lost daughter, and a conspiracy that threatened to shake the very foundations of reality. Noah was paralyzed, his gaze alternating between Mackenzie's physical body on the bed and her ethereal form hovering beside it. The reality he knew was shattering before his eyes. How is this possible? He stammered, extending a trembling hand towards the ethereal Mackenzie. His hand passed through her as if she was smoke, but he felt an electric current run through his body. The ethereal Mackenzie smiled sadly. The Guardians of Light discovered a way to separate consciousness from the physical body, she explained. They believe they're opening a portal to the divine, but what they've really done is tear the veil between worlds. At that moment, Mackenzie's physical body on the bed shuddered, and her eyes opened. Dr. Thompson, she whispered, we don't have much time. They know I've woken up, and they'll come after us. Noah felt the weight of responsibility fall on his shoulders. What can we do? The ethereal Mackenzie moved to the window, looking out at the city of Vancouver below. We need to find Sarah. She has the evidence needed to expose the Guardians. But how? Noah asked, feeling completely lost. There's a nurse, Mackenzie said, her voice weak. Evelyn Moore. She knows more than she lets on. Look for her. No sooner had the words left her lips when the door to the room burst open violently. Dr. Richard Blackwood, head of neurosurgery, entered accompanied by 2 security guards. Dr. Thompson, Blackwood said, his voice cold as ice. Step away from the patient. You're temporarily suspended from your duties. Noah positioned himself protectively in front of Mackenzie. What's going on here, Richard? This is none of your business, Blackwood retorted. Miss Fraser needs specialized treatment. Take her. The guards advanced, but before they could reach Mackenzie, the hospital lights began to flicker frantically. A supernatural wind swept through the room, papers flying, and medical equipment rattling. Mackenzie's ethereal form grew, filling the room with a bluish light. Her voice, now amplified and reverberating, echoed, "You can no longer contain me. The truth will come to light." Blackwood and the guards retreated, terror evident on their faces. Noah seized the moment of distraction to pick up Mackenzie in his arms and run out of the room. As they ran through the chaotic hospital corridors, alarms blaring and people shouting in confusion, Noah felt as if he were living a surreal dream. But the weight of Mackenzie in his arms and the sound of footsteps pursuing them were very real. "Where are we going?" he gasped. "Basement," Mackenzie murmured, her energy clearly depleted after the demonstration in the room. "There's a passage behind the old dead file." Noah carried her to the service elevator, his heart pounding in his chest. When the doors opened in the basement, he found himself in a dark DAMP corridor full of dusty files and old equipment. There, Mackenzie pointed weakly to a shelf at the back. Noah pushed it, revealing a secret passage. Without hesitation, he entered, the shelf closing behind them with a soft click. They found themselves in a tunnel lit by dim lights. Noah gently placed Mackenzie on the ground, helping her lean against the cold wall. "What is this place?" he asked, looking around in wonder. "It's one of the Guardian's escape routes," Mackenzie explained, her breathing still labored. "But it's also our chance to find Sarah." Noah felt his heart leap. "Sarah is here, in these tunnels." Mackenzie nodded slowly. "Yes, but it won't be easy to find her. These tunnels are a labyrinth, and there are other things here. Things that the Guardians created in their experiments." A distant noise echoed through the tunnel, making them both freeze. It sounded like a moan, but not entirely human. "Dr. Thompson," Mackenzie said, her eyes full of determination and fear. "We're about to enter a world that defies everything you know. Are you prepared for this?" Noah looked at the tunnel ahead, thinking of Sarah, the hospital's dark secrets, and the incredible journey Mackenzie had revealed. He knew his life would never be the same again. "I'm ready," he said, helping Mackenzie to her feet. "Let's find Sarah and expose the truth, no matter the cost." Together, they advanced into the depths of the tunnel, ready to face the mysteries and horrors that awaited them, determined to unravel the conspiracy that had altered their lives forever. The air in the tunnels was dense and humid, laden with the weight of long-buried secrets. Noah and Mackenzie advanced cautiously, their footsteps echoing off the concrete walls. Every few meters, dim lights flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to take on a life of their own. "How did you know about these tunnels?" Noah asked, his voice low and tense. Mackenzie, still weak but determined, replied, "During my sleep, my consciousness wandered here. I saw things, Dr. Thompson, things that defy logic and sanity." A distant moan made them both stop abruptly. It was a sound that didn't belong to this world, a mixture of pain and something other. "What was that?" Noah whispered, feeling a shiver run down his spine. "The Guardian's experiments," Mackenzie answered, her face pale in the dim light. "Not all of them were successful." They continued in silence, each step taking them deeper into the underground labyrinth. Suddenly, Mackenzie grabbed Noah's arm, her eyes wide. "Wait," she said, "I sense something." Before Noah could respond, Mackenzie's ethereal form separated from her physical body again. She floated a few meters ahead, seeming to listen to something Noah couldn't perceive. "Sarah," the ethereal Mackenzie whispered. Sarah, the ethereal Mackenzie whispered. "She's close, but there's something wrong." Noah felt his heart race. Where is she?" The ethereal Mackenzie pointed to a fork ahead. "That way, but we have to be careful. The Guardians have guards." As they advanced, the tunnel began to change. The concrete walls gave way to a strange, almost organic material. It pulsed slightly, as if alive. "What is this?" Noah asked, resisting the urge to touch the walls. "Bioengineering," Mackenzie explained, her voice trembling. "The Guardians are trying to create a physical bridge between worlds." Suddenly, a sharp scream cut through the air. It was a voice Noah would recognize anywhere. "Sarah," he shouted, running towards the sound. "Dr. Thompson, wait," Mackenzie called, but it was too late. Noah turned a corner and found himself in a large circular chamber. In the center, strapped to some kind of biomechanical machine, was Sarah. She looked older than in the photo, her face marked by years of suffering. Around her, hooded figures were performing some sort of ritual. "Dad," Sarah called, her voice weak and confused. Noah advanced, but was stopped by an invisible barrier. One of the hooded figures turned, lowering their hood to reveal a familiar face. Dr. William Thompson, Noah's father. Noah William said, his voice a mixture of sadness and determination. "You shouldn't be here, Dad." What's happening? What have you done to Sarah?" William sighed deeply. "Son, there are things beyond your comprehension at stake here. We're on the brink of a discovery that will change the world forever." At that moment, Mackenzie entered the chamber, her ethereal form glowing intensely. "Enough lies, Dr. Thompson," she declared. "It's time for the truth to come to light." With a gesture, Mackenzie made the invisible barrier fall. The other hooded figures retreated, clearly frightened by her power. Noah ran to Sarah, frantically working to free her from the machine. William, however, made no move to stop him. "You don't understand," William said, his voice breaking. "We're trying to save humanity. The veil between worlds is unraveling if we don't find a way to strengthen it." But his words were interrupted by a tremor that shook the entire chamber. The organic walls pulsed violently, and a deafening roar echoed through the tunnels. "It's too late," Mackenzie shouted. "The portal is opening." In the center of the chamber, where Sarah had been strapped, a rift began to open in the air itself. Through it, glimpses of another world, a realm of shadows and light, could be seen. Noah, holding Sarah in his arms, looked at his father, at Mackenzie, and at the opening portal. He realized he was at the epicenter of a cosmic battle, a fight for the fate of reality itself. And at that moment, with the world literally falling apart around him, Noah understood that the choices he would make in the next moments would not only determine his fate and that of his family, but potentially the fate of all humanity. The chapter ends with Noah standing on the threshold between two worlds, the weight of the universe on his shoulders, as the roar of the portal grew, threatening to engulf everything in its path. The roar of the portal grew, a chaotic symphony of colliding realities. Noah, with Sarah in his arms, felt the ground trembled beneath his feet. The rift in the air pulsed, expanding with each second, swallowing the light around it. "Noah," William shouted, his voice almost lost in the tumult. "We have to close the portal. If we don't, both worlds will be destroyed." Mackenzie, her ethereal form shimmering intensely, floated close to Noah. "He's right, Dr. Thompson, but the price might be too high." Noah looked at Sarah, who was trembling in his arms, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "What's the price?" he yelled over the roar. "A soul," William answered, his voice heavy with grief. "The portal demands a soul to close. That's why we kept Sarah here. She was the key." The revelation hit Noah like a punch to the gut. All the pain, all the suffering, it had all been for this, to sacrifice his own daughter. But before Noah could react, Sarah pulled away from him, stumbling towards the portal. "I understand now," she said, her voice strangely calm. "This is why they showed me all those visions. This is why I was chosen." "Sarah, no," Noah cried, trying to reach her, but an invisible force held him back. At that moment, something unexpected happened. Mackenzie's physical body, which had been left behind, entered the chamber. Her eyes were open but empty, moving as if in a trance. The ethereal Mackenzie looked at her physical body with a mixture of sadness and determination. "There's another way," she said. "A soul divided between two worlds. This is how we can close the portal without sacrificing Sarah." William shook his head vigorously. "No, it's too dangerous. We don't know what will happen." But Mackenzie had already made her decision. With a gesture, she pulled Sarah back, away from the portal. Then, turning to Noah, she said, "Dr. Thompson, take care of her. And remember, the truth we've discovered here must come to light. The world needs to know. Before anyone could stop her, Mackenzie merged her ethereal form with her physical body. For a moment, she glowed with a light so intense that everyone had to look away. Then, with a cry that seemed to come from her very soul, she launched herself into the portal. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The portal began to close, sucking Mackenzie in. But something unexpected happened. While her physical body was pulled to the other side, her ethereal form remained, hovering in the air like a luminous ghost. "What's happening?" Noah shouted, holding Sarah protectively. William, watching with wide eyes, murmured, "She did it." She split herself between the worlds, anchoring the portal on both sides. As the portal closed, Mackenzie's ethereal form solidified, becoming more tangible. When it finally shut with a deafening boom, Mackenzie fell to the ground, gasping but alive, or at least partially alive. The silence that followed was deafening. Noah, still embracing Sarah, looked around the chamber. The other guardians had fled, leaving only him, Sarah, William, and Mackenzie's new form. "Is it over?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Mackenzie slowly rose, her body now a translucent version of herself. "No," she said, her voice echoing in a strange way. "This is just the beginning." William stepped forward, his eyes full of awe and fear. "What have you become, Mackenzie?" She smiled sadly. "I am the bridge now, between this world and the other. The price I paid to save you all." Noah, still trying to process everything that had happened, asked, "And now, what do we do?" Mackenzie looked at each of them, her eyes shining with knowledge beyond this world. "Now, Dr. Thompson, we do what I promised. We reveal the truth, but not just about the Guardians and their experiments. The truth about the very nature of reality." As she spoke, the walls of the chamber began to change, reflecting images of other worlds, other realities. Noah realized they were on the threshold of a new era, one in which the boundaries between science and spirituality, between the natural and the supernatural, would be redefined forever. With Sarah safe in his arms and Mackenzie as their interdimensional guide, Noah knew their journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The dawn light infiltrated through the windows of St. Paul's Hospital, casting long shadows across the empty corridors. Noah, Sarah, and Mackenzie, in her new ethereal form, moved silently, their footsteps echoing in the sepulchral silence. "Where do we go now?" Sarah whispered, her voice still trembling after the events in the depths of the hospital. Noah squeezed his daughter's hand reassuringly. "We need to get out of here before the Guardians regroup. But first, we need proof," Mackenzie completed, her voice sounding as if it came from far away. "Without concrete evidence, no one will believe our story." They reached Noah's office. With trembling hands, he unlocked the door and quickly began rummaging through his drawers. "Here," he said, pulling out a USB drive. "All my research files from the last 5 years. It may not be much, but it's a start." Mackenzie floated to a nearby computer, her translucent hands hovering over the keyboard. To Noah and Sarah's surprise, she began typing rapidly, accessing files that should have been heavily protected. "How are you doing that?" Sarah asked, amazed. "My condition allows me to interact with electronic systems in unique ways," Mackenzie explained, her eyes glowing with supernatural knowledge. "I'm downloading all the records of the Guardian's experiments." As Mackenzie worked, Noah heard footsteps approaching. "Someone's coming," he warned, pulling Sarah behind a bookshelf. The door opened, revealing Nurse Evelyn Moore, the same one Mackenzie had mentioned earlier. Her eyes widened at the scene before her. "Dr. Thompson, what's happening here?" she asked, her gaze fixed on Mackenzie's ethereal form. Noah stepped forward, ready to explain, but Mackenzie interrupted him. "Evelyn," she said softly, "you know this is wrong. You've seen what the Guardians have done. Help us expose the truth." The nurse hesitated, conflict evident on her face. Finally, she nodded. I have something you need to see." Evelyn pulled a small device from her pocket. "It's a recorder," I've been recording conversations of the Guardians for months. I knew something was wrong, but I was afraid to act. Noah took the recorder, gratitude and relief flooding his face. This could be exactly what we need. At that moment, alarms began to sound throughout the hospital. They know we're here, Mackenzie warned. We need to go now. The group ran through the corridors, guided by Evelyn through little-known service passages. As they ran, Noah couldn't help but notice how the shadows seemed to move in strange ways, as if the hospital itself was alive and aware of their escape. Finally, they emerged in an underground parking lot. Evelyn led them to an old car parked in a dark corner. "Take this," she said, handing the keys to Noah. "It's registered under a false name. It will be harder to trace." Noah hesitated. "You're not coming with us." Evelyn shook her head sadly. "Someone needs to stay behind, to distract them. Go, expose the truth." With heavy hearts, they got into the car. As Noah drove out of the parking lot, Sarah looked back, watching Evelyn grow smaller in the rearview mirror. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked, her voice laden with exhaustion and fear. Mackenzie, sitting in the back seat, her ethereal form glowing softly, answered to the press. "It's time for the world to know the truth." As they drove through the streets of Vancouver, the rising sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Noah felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. They were about to shake the foundations of reality as the world knew it. "Dad," Sarah said softly, "do you think people will believe us?" Noah exchanged a look with Mackenzie in the rearview mirror. "They'll have to believe what we've seen. What we've experienced is too big to be ignored." Mackenzie nodded, her form shimmering with supernatural energy. "This is just the beginning. The veil between worlds has been torn, and now it's up to us to navigate the consequences." As the car advanced towards an uncertain future, Noah knew that nothing would ever be the same. The truth was about to come out, and with it, a new chapter in the history of humanity was about to be written. The hospital was left behind, but its secrets followed them, echoing through the realities they now knew existed. Their journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The morning sun bathed the streets of Vancouver as Noah parked the car in front of the CBC News headquarters. The imposing building seemed intimidating, a fortress of truth they hoped to conquer. "Are you ready for this?" Noah asked, looking at Sarah and then at Mackenzie in the back seat. Sarah nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "More than ever, Dad." Mackenzie, her ethereal form pulsing softly, said, "Remember, once we take this step, there's no going back. The world as we know it will change forever." They got out of the car and walked towards the entrance. Noah felt the weight of the USB drive in his pocket and Evelyn's recorder in his hand. Evidence that would change everything. At the reception, a young woman looked at them curiously, her eyes widening as she saw Mackenzie's translucent form. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to speak to someone from the newsroom," Noah said firmly. "It's urgent." Before the receptionist could respond, a middle-aged woman with a producer's badge appeared. "I'm Diane LeBlanc," she introduced herself, her astute eyes assessing the group. "What brings you here with such urgency?" Noah took a deep breath. "We have a story that will change the world, about secret experiments, alternative realities, and a conspiracy that shakes the foundations of what we think we know about existence." Diane raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical, until her gaze fell on Mackenzie. Her mouth opened in shock. "My God," she whispered. What are you?" Mackenzie stepped forward, her presence filling the room with a palpable energy. "I am the living proof of what they're going to tell you, Mrs. LeBlanc. The bridge between worlds that should never have met." Diane stared at them for a long moment, before nodding decisively. "Come with me now." They were led to a conference room. In the following minutes, Noah and Sarah narrated their story, with Mackenzie filling in the supernatural details. Diane listened attentively, her face a mixture of disbelief and fascination. When they finished, she stood up abruptly. "Wait here," she said, leaving the room. The minutes dragged on, tense and silent. Finally, Diane returned, accompanied by a serious-looking man. "This is Robert Chen, our editor-in-chief," she announced. "He would want to broadcast your story. Live, now." Noah's heart leaped. "Live, but we have no choice," Robert intervened. "If what you say is true, and from what I see," he looked at Mackenzie, "it seems to be. The world needs to know immediately." The events that followed were a blur. Makeup, microphones, lights. Noah found himself seated in a studio, with Sarah by his side, and Mackenzie hovering behind them, her ethereal presence causing a stir among the technical crew. "We're on air in 5, 4, 3. The red light on the camera came on, and Noah felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Good afternoon, viewers," the anchor began, her professional voice barely disguising her nervousness. "We interrupt our programming for a special broadcast. What you are about to see and hear will challenge everything we believe we know about our reality." As Noah began to tell his story, he saw the shocked faces of the crew around him. Phones began to ring frantically backstage. Halfway through the narrative, the studio doors burst open violently. William Thompson, accompanied by security guards, stormed onto the set. "Stop this broadcast," he shouted. "You don't understand what you're doing." But it was too late. Mackenzie, her form glowing intensely, floated to the center of the studio, visible to millions of viewers. "The time for secrecy is over," she declared, her voice echoing with supernatural power. "The veil has been torn, and humanity must face the truth." At that moment, as if responding to her words, the ground began to shake. The lights flickered, and for an instant, everyone in the studio saw flashes of other worlds, other realities overlapping with ours. William fell to his knees, tears in his eyes. "What have we done?" he whispered. Noah, holding Sarah's hand firmly, looked directly into the camera. "People of Canada, of the world, prepare yourselves. The universe is larger and stranger than we ever imagined. And now, we are all part of this new reality." As chaos ensued in the studio and beyond, Noah knew this was just the beginning. The truth was out, and with it, a new era for humanity was dawning. An era of wonders, dangers, and infinite possibilities. And at the center of it all were they, a doctor, his resurrected daughter, and a being that transcended worlds. Together, they would face whatever came next, navigating the turbulent waters of a newly expanded reality. The world would never be the same again, and their journey, it was just beginning. The sun rose over a transformed Vancouver. The streets, once familiar, now pulsed with an ethereal energy. Here and there, small pockets of alternate reality shimmered like soap bubbles, offering fleeting glimpses of worlds beyond imagination. Noah, Sarah, and Mackenzie walked through Stanley Park, now a nexus of converging realities. Century-old trees intertwined with alien crystalline structures, while local birds flew alongside luminescent creatures from other worlds. "It's incredible," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "I never imagined we'd see something like this in our lifetime." Noah nodded, still processing the magnitude of the changes. "The whole world is like this now. Reports are coming in from every corner of the globe." The revelation on CBC was just the catalyst. Mackenzie, her ethereal form pulsing gently, floated close to them. "This is only the beginning. The convergence of realities will continue to intensify. Humanity will need to adapt quickly." As they walked, they encountered groups of people, cautiously exploring the park's new wonders. Some seemed terrified, others awestruck. Scientists collected samples of hybrid plants, while artists attempted to capture on canvas the impossible colors that now painted the sky. Suddenly, A scream echoed nearby. A child had gotten too close to one of the reality pockets and was being pulled in. Without hesitation, Noah ran towards her, reaching out to grab her. The moment his fingers touched the pocket, Noah felt a wave of overwhelming sensations. Visions of distant worlds, ancient and future civilizations, and cosmic truths flooded his mind. With a Herculean effort, he pulled the child back, falling backwards in the process. Sarah ran to them, checking if they were all right. The child seemed disoriented, but unharmed. Noah, on the other hand, was shaking, his eyes wide with what he had experienced. "Dad?" Sarah asked, concerned. "What happened?" Noah took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. "I saw everything. The past, the future, parallel realities. It's too much to comprehend." Mackenzie approached, her expression serious. "What you experienced, Dr. Thompson, was a glimpse of what I see constantly. The fabric of reality is becoming increasingly thin. We need to find a way to stabilize it. All the chaos that will follow will be unimaginable." At that moment, Noah's cell phone rang. It was Alina Rossi, the quantum physicist they had met at the CBC studio. "Dr. Thompson," her voice sounded urgent through the phone. "We need you at the research center immediately. We've discovered something disturbing." Exchanging worried looks, the trio quickly headed to the location indicated by Alina. The research center, once an ordinary building, now seemed to float between dimensions, its walls oscillating between solid concrete and pure energy. Inside, they found Alina and a team of scientists surrounding a large apparatus that resembled a particle accelerator. "What's happening?" Alina Noah asked, feeling the tension in the air. Alina, her face pale with concern, pointed to a screen full of graphs and equations. "The barriers between realities are deteriorating faster than we thought. If we don't do something, in a matter of days, maybe hours, our universe could collapse, merging with countless others." Sarah gasped, the gravity of the situation hitting her. "What can we do?" It was Mackenzie who answered, her voice laden with knowledge beyond time. "We need an anchor, something or someone that can act as a focal point to realign the realities." All eyes turned to her, understanding slowly forming. "You mean," Noah began, but couldn't finish the sentence. Mackenzie nodded solemnly. "Yes, Dr. Thompson, I must become that anchor. This is what I was prepared for, even without knowing it." The silence that followed was deafening. The magnitude of the sacrifice Mackenzie was proposing weighed on all present. Sarah stepped forward, tears in her eyes. But what if there's another way?" Mackenzie smiled sadly. "Sometimes, the greatest act of love is sacrifice. I understand that now." Noah, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders, looked at Alina. "What do we need to do?" Alina hesitated, clearly conflicted. "Theoretically, if we can channel Mackenzie's energy through the accelerator, we could create a stabilization field. But the cost is necessary." Mackenzie interrupted softly. "One life for the existence of countless others." As the team prepared for the procedure, Noah pulled Mackenzie aside. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. Mackenzie nodded, her ethereal being glowing with serene determination. "Dr. Thompson, you gave me a second chance at life. Now, I can give the universe a second chance. There is no better choice." With heavy hearts, they initiated the procedure. Mackenzie floated to the center of the accelerator, her being beginning to pulse with cosmic energy. As the machine hummed to life, Noah held Sarah in his arms. Together, they witnessed Mackenzie transform into pure light, her sacrifice echoing across realities. A wave of energy swept across the planet, stabilizing the converging realities. The pockets of alternate reality began to dissolve, leaving behind a forever changed but intact world. At the epicenter of it all, where Mackenzie had been, a small star pulsed gently, an eternal reminder of the power of sacrifice and love. Noah, tears in his eyes, looked at the now stabilized sky. "Thank you, Mackenzie," he he whispered. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Sarah squeezed her father's hand. And now, what do we do? Noah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the hope of a new beginning. Now, we start to rebuild, to understand this new world we've been given, and to honor the sacrifice that brought us here. As the sun set on this new era of humanity, Noah knew that the challenges ahead would be immense. But with the lessons learned, the knowledge gained, and the example of courage left by Mackenzie, he had faith that humanity would find its way. The universe had been saved, but the journey was far from over. In fact, for Noah, Sarah, and all of humanity, it was just the beginning of a new and extraordinary cosmic adventure. As the world began to adjust to its new reality, Noah and Sarah remained in the park, observing the pulsing star that had once been Mackenzie. Her sacrifice echoed the ancient words, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." John 15:13. Dear listeners, as we conclude this extraordinary journey, I invite you to reflect. If you were in Mackenzie's place, would you have the courage to make the same sacrifice for the greater good? The story of Noah, Sarah, and Mackenzie reminds us that even in the darkest moments, the light of hope and love can shine brightest. Their experiences teach us that true strength comes not just from knowledge, but from compassion and sacrifice. If this journey has touched your heart and sparked your imagination, I invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. Your unique perspectives enrich our collective understanding of these profound truths. And if you wish to continue exploring the mysteries of the universe and the depths of the human spirit, consider subscribing to our channel. Together, we can continue this journey of discovery and growth. Remember, just like Noah and Sarah, each of us has a crucial role in the cosmic tapestry of existence. May we honor that role with courage, compassion, and an open heart to the infinite possibilities that surround us. Until the next story, may Mackenzie's light guide your steps and illuminate your path.